Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. Continuing on with some college football, Week 7. Some more weekday action. Thursday night, West Virginia at Houston, Big 12. Line is Houston plus 2.5. It's actually down from 3. Or it is on some books. You can still get Houston plus 3 as I'm recording this. Total sitting at 49.5.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
So the public's all over West Virginia in this one. Over 70% of the tickets are in on WVU. The money's pretty split even, though, so there are a lot of sharps out there that like Houston getting the 3 points, and the books are reacting to it. Like I said, I see lines dropping to 2.5. By the time you're watching this, it might be 2.5 across the board. So these two teams are off to basically opposite starts in conference play. West Virginia right at the top of the Big 12 standings next to Oklahoma. The only two teams in the entire conference that haven't lost a game, or haven't lost a conference game yet, I should say. Houston dropped their first 2 Big 12 games. This will actually be the first time these two programs have ever met before. They've never played a game in their history. But that's not to say there's zero connection between the two of them. Dana Holgorsen, Houston's head coach, he was the head coach at West Virginia for 8 or 9 years. Had a pretty good run there. He's been at Houston since 2019, though. This is his 5th year at Houston. None of the players he coached at West Virginia are still there. So I don't know if I'd classify this as a revenge spot. It's 5 years ago. Just thought it was worth mentioning. So how do these two teams match up on the field? Well, the two offenses are basically complete opposites. West Virginia's going to run the ball over and over and over again. Houston's looking to throw it. Houston's dropped back to pass on 54.3% of their snaps this year. That's 29th in the FBS. So Houston's running a pass-first offense even without Clayton Tune. And despite what you may think by looking at Houston's schedule so far this year, they've actually been pretty good at throwing the ball. Definitely not the Houston offense from last year with Clayton Tune, but they're averaging 281 pass yards per game, 7.2 yards per pass attempt. Houston's offense is rated 40th in effective pass, so the passing offense is still there. And Donovan Smith seems to be heating up a bit. In his last 2 games, he's thrown for 630 yards on over 75% completions, passer rating over 160. He went off on his old team, Texas Tech. Unfortunately, the defense couldn't make a single stop in the second half, and they lost that game 49-28, but Donovan Smith was good in it. This one's going to be a real challenge for him, though, because the West Virginia defense is good, and they're hot right now. They're allowing just 218 pass yards per game on the season, 6.5 yards per attempt. They're ranked 55th in effective pass. Mountaineers have really done a good job against the pass. This is a West Virginia team that's coming off back-to-back wins over Texas Tech and TCU, 2 high-powered offenses, and they beat both of them in low-scoring games. Last game was on the road in TCU. They were down 21-14 at half. In the second half, TCU had 6 drives, 4 punts, and 2 missed field goals. They got shut out in the second half. West Virginia held TCU and Texas Tech to 21 and 13 points. If you're familiar with Big 12 football, you know that that's pretty wild. I mean, that's impressive. West Virginia is playing some good defense right now. Now, on the other side of the ball, like I said earlier, West Virginia's offense is the complete opposite of Texas Tech's. West Virginia's run the ball on 67% of their offensive snaps this year. That's 4th most in the FBS. It goes Air Force, Army, Navy, then West Virginia. They're right up there with the service academies. This is run-first program all the way. They are rated 14th in effective rush, but they're averaging just 3.7 yards per carry. If you're wondering how that's possible, it's their schedule. They went on the road into Penn State. They played Texas Tech, Pittsburgh, teams that play great defense against the run. What makes the West Virginia rushing attack so difficult to stop is it's dynamic. In their 5 games this year, West Virginia's had 4 different leading rushers. CJ Donaldson is obviously the main guy, but Garrett Green ran for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns playing quarterback last week. They also got Jaheim White, who's a speedy back. He's averaging 9 yards per carry on the season. Stopping this run game is not easy. And Houston's been pretty terrible defensively. Houston's got the 108th ranked defense according to Beta Rank. They're allowing over 163 rush yards per game on 4.6 yards per carry, 90th and 92nd in the country. They're 110th in effective rush. In Houston's last home game, TCU came into town and rushed for 250 yards on them, beat them 36-13 in blowout fashion. But here's the thing. In that game, Houston's defense also had to account for Chandler Morris throwing the ball. Chandler Morris threw for 314 yards on 8.5 yards per attempt in that game. Garrett Green does not throw the ball like that. In fact, when you really look at it, there's kind of a pattern forming here. Houston's defense looks awful so far this season, but they've played mostly passing offenses. The only run-first offense they've seen this entire season was UTSA, and they won that game, 17-14. Defense actually played well. If Houston loads the box in this game and forces Garrett Green to make plays with his arm. I don't know how we can lay 3 points on the road with this West Virginia team. I mean, they are so reliant on the run. Garrett Green's made 2 FBS starts this year, just 54.2% completions, 152 yards per game, 6.3 yards per attempt. He hasn't shown us he can be an efficient passer in the FBS. I do not feel comfortable laying points with a one-dimensional offense on the road here, and it's a perfect buy low, sell high spot. West Virginia coming off back-to-back huge wins over Texas Tech and TCU. Everyone's high on West Virginia right now. Houston coming off a blowout loss. Everyone's down on them. It's a perfect spot. I hate this Houston team, but I really love the spot for them. I already got in at Houston +3, so if you want to ride with me, I would try to get in now before it moves to 2.5. I'm on the Cougars here, Houston +3. Next up, SMU at ECU. ECU catching 12.5 points at home. This number is up from 11. Total sitting at 49.5. Looking like we got a serious pros versus public setup in this one. Public is all over SMU. Over 80% of the tickets in on SMU. Sharp action all over ECU. Close to 70% of the money is in on the Pirates. So complete pros versus public setup to the max. Line's been moving towards the public. Was at 11 as recent as Monday morning. It's now up to 12.5. At first glance, this looks like a pretty simple one. I mean, you've got a great offense in SMU against a pretty terrible defense in ECU. SMU's offense is ranked 25th overall, 33rd in effective rush, 29th in effective pass. I know some people are probably worried about the home away splits for SMU, specifically Preston Stone at quarterback. There's a night and day difference between his home games and his away games. 52.5% completion, 6.3 yards per attempt, 102.5 passer rating, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. I mean, he's been straight up bad on the road and almost perfect at home. At home, he's got 173 passer rating, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. But if you look at who he played in those games, his 2 road games were at Oklahoma and at TCU, both teams who have extremely undervalued defenses this year. Those are 2 top 35 defenses right there. At home, he's had much easier competition, and he's cooked in all 3 games. ECU's defense is closer to that category. Appalachian State scored 43 points with 480 yards of offense in that game against ECU, 8.3 yards per pass attempt, 5.3 yards per carry. They were running the ball, throwing it, did whatever they wanted on ECU. That defense was looking bad. Beta Rank has ECU's defense ranked at 113th in the FBS, 94th in effective rush, 111th in effective pass. So we've established the ECU defense has been struggling, no doubt. But keep in mind, ECU is a team that plays much better at home. And look at their schedule. Basically, they've played their entire season on the road. The only FBS home game they had was against Marshall, and at a quick glance, it looks like they got crushed at home 31-13. But yo, ECU was up 13-10 in that game in the 4th quarter. Marshall did a double pass. They threw it backwards to their wide receiver, who then threw a 75-yard touchdown pass to give Marshall a 17-13 lead. But in the 4th quarter, ECU was up 13-10, and then there was that crazy pass, and then a couple late touchdowns when they were trying to close out the game made it look like a blowout. It wasn't. ECU had that game. This year's ECU team is definitely not as good as last year's ECU team, but last year's team was really good at home. They almost beat North Carolina State in the opener. They lost on the last second, 21-20. North Carolina State was supposed to be good last year. They beat South Florida. They beat Memphis. They beat UCF. Greenville's not an easy place to go and play, which is why I like the value on ECU. I'm taking the big number on this one, 12.5. Sign me up. Give me ECU plus 12.5. If you want my top bets, parlays of the day, if you want to join our Discord, or you want to get in the NFL Against the Spread giveaway contest, head over to KyleKirms.com. The information's right there on the homepage. College football week 7. Got some Thursday night games to go along with Thursday night football in the NFL. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.